Our revered Sri Vanamali Das has already given us the good introduction to our subject today, that is, rousing the forces of good within us to do battle with those of error, which we call evil. The subject assigned to me today is coping with life's tests. You might say that in that concept is the total of all of the questions and problems that you all have been bringing to me in these days. Coping with life's tests. First of all, we should remember that we ourselves are the creators of those tests, isn't it? Our tests are primarily the result of our wrong or misguided actions, which produce results that are unpleasant, something that we must cope with. In the very beginning, I would like to say that one of the greatest ways to cope with life's tests, and that is, don't be a fatalist. I find that this is such a popular feeling in India, where the concept of karma is there. So often, devotees come lamenting, I have this trouble in my business, I have this trouble in my meditation, I have this trouble in my family, I have this trouble in my body. But what can I do? It is my karma. I must suffer it through. It is my samskars. Gurudev never accepted that idea. And he taught us not to accept that idea. While true that the problems that we have are of our own making, from misguided or wrong actions and from the misuse of our will, we should never ever allow the mind to accept the limitation imposed by the results of those wrong actions. Gurudev taught us, you are a child of God. His image is dwelling in that body temple. As He is all-powerful, so are you all-powerful. And he said, just as the Lord, you might say, has delusion within Himself, but He is untouched by that delusion. He refuses to be limited by that delusion. There is that divine consciousness beyond that delusion which keeps power or control over it. So in the same way within us. Though we may be moving in a sea of Maya, though we may be subject to its relativities of joy and sorrow and pleasure and pain, sickness and health, success and failure, we must not be touched by it. Isn't that what Krishna, time and time again in the Gita, is saying, teaching the disciple, is teaching the devotee? O my devotee, be of even mind. Do not be tossed up and down on these waves of change. And he goes even further, as Gurudev so much emphasized to us. As the divine is living within you, use your will, use that divinity to resist those patterns of suffering. Now surely, though we create by wrong action, we create these karmic patterns, they are very deeply, you might say, lodged in our brain and in our consciousness. But they are definite grooves or patterns. And And because we were selfish in some incarnation, so we attract poverty in this life. Because maybe we have abused our health, or maybe we're unsympathetic to those who were suffering, maybe we attract ill health in this life. Maybe because we were lazy and didn't put forth the right amount of God-given will and effort to do something worthwhile in this world, we seem to attract failure in this life. These definitely then are patterns. They are there, and the pattern says, this is the result that you have to endure in your coming days. Now, when those results begin to manifest, what is our attitude? First of all, we can say, this is my karma. I did wrong in the past, therefore I have to suffer it. Therefore there is no hope for me. Until somehow by the grace or the mercy of God, I will be freed from it. That kind of attitude and that kind of giving in, surrendering to the evil of your life, the Maya-caused delusion of your life, tends to set those patterns, tends to make them even more firm. Because we think, I am a failure, my karma, my samskars make me a failure, therefore there's no use, no matter what I do, there's no use making effort because I can't succeed in anything. So you give up. The will becomes paralyzed. By the lack of the use of that divine will, that pattern gets deeper. It is not changed, it is not broken. And in this way one can unnecessarily carry that karmic pattern even from one lifetime to another to another. You add to it, in other words. Coping with life's tests, coping more or less means that you can learn to endure or to suffer through what cannot be changed. In other words, somehow you get a mental endurance. I believe the scriptures refer to mental endurance without the consciousness being ruffled is titiksha. Titiksha, wherein, though you were going through problems and pains and troubles, you try to keep the mind even. You try not to be too much ruffled or too much limited by it. That enables you, you might say, to cope with life's tests. But I think that our subject should go deeper, because we not only want to cope with life's tests and problems, we don't want just to be able to endure whatever our karma says we must have in this life, do we? We would very much like to get over those tests. We would like to get rid of those problems. So perhaps a better subject would be overcoming life's tests. And that is what Gurudev taught us. Not just endurance, not just even endurance with an even mind, but to be victorious in life, to be a victor over ourself, to change our destiny. As Gurudev said to us, remember, no one but you have made you what you are at this moment. God didn't interfere. No other human being could possibly have interfered and made you what you are today. You are today what you yourself have made yourself by your right or your wrong actions and thoughts and motives and endeavors and desires. If we have made our destiny, then we also have that power within us to change our destiny. Sri Yukteswarji said, everything in future will improve if you are making a spiritual effort now. And if there is one thing I would stress to you, and that is that conscious effort, the non-acceptance of any imperfection or limitation in your life. That is why Gurudev used to say to us, you know, even if a person is dying of an incurable disease and is on his deathbed, only give to that person positive thoughts, thoughts of health, thoughts of strength, thoughts of faith, and that I am a child of God untouched by what this body is going through. Because he said if one dies with the thoughts of incurable disease, if one leaves this incarnation with thoughts of failure, if one leaves this incarnation with thoughts of limitation or unhappiness, these, as it says also, Krishna explained in the Bhagavad Gita, those thoughts which predominate at the moment of death determine the man's next or future lifetime, isn't it? So, my dear ones, you see, you cannot leave this body at death with a positive, firm conviction that you are a child of God and that your next life is going to be freer and better and happier and more successful, unless you have lived with that thought. You have to put that kind of consciousness in your mind. Gurudev said to us, remember that the mind is all-powerful. It has the power. It borrows its power from God, but we limit it. This whole universe, you and I and everything in this world, is nothing but the thought of God. On a little piece of thought rests the cosmic lot. If God withdraws that thought, if He withdraws this power of His mind, we cease to exist. Our mind draws that same power from God if we develop it and if we use it. Therefore, we can create any condition in our body. We can create any condition in our success. We can do anything that we want to do if we put the mind behind it. Gurudev said, if I were in the world and I were a failure, and there was no job for me, as an example, I would shake this whole universe with my cries and my demands until the universe would have to give me a job to keep me quiet. That is the kind of determination you have to have. That is the kind of willpower that you have to have in order to be the victor or the conqueror in life. To set or change your destiny today so that it will be what you want it to be tomorrow. Understanding has a great deal to do with how we succeed in life or how we are able to cope with our problems and our trials, because many of our sorrows, many of our problems and trials have to do with individuals, misunderstandings with people. And let's say not only misunderstandings with people, but misunderstanding of the whole purpose of creation, the whole purpose of our tests and problems. As Gurudev said to us, remember this, that adversity, you know the meaning of adversity, that adversity is nothing but the shadow of God's outstretched hand of blessing. There is no such thing as adversity. So every problem and every test that we have is to teach us something, is to present some new lesson that we must learn in overcoming, so that we may be and act and express as a child of God. Understanding, therefore, is necessary. Without understanding why these problems, without understanding why these tests, without understanding of having that thread of unity or God running through all human beings and all life's experiences, without having that kind of understanding, then we don't know how to cope with those problems. We go on creating new problems daily for ourselves from lack of understanding. Gurudev said this, no matter what your trials, try to understand the purpose behind them. Understanding should be your guiding force in everything. Remember this, Gurudev said, to fly away from your problems, to fly away from your troubles, may seem to be the easiest thing, but that is not success. You can only gain strength when you face and when you wrestle with your problems. Elsewhere, Gurudev once said, A life without problems is no life at all, because there is no progress. You would be like a vegetable. Problems make us strong. Problems give us this understanding Gurudev is talking about, if we face those problems with the right attitude. Gurudev says, wherever you are, there is where you must win your victory over life. You will not win by flying away. You will win by understanding. You will win by seeking God's guidance and help to overcome, to conquer all the problems in life. That was the way Gurudev talked to us. That is the way he taught us. Gurudev never allowed us to be a coward in life. He insisted that we be divine warriors. That's what he used to say to us. Remember that sadhana means that you become a divine warrior, ready to face any trial, any test that comes to you. But with that indomitable will, that indomitable determination that, Lord, this is something you have sent to me because you are trying to show me some wrong that I have done. You teach me, show me what I am to learn from this, but I do not accept this limitation. I am your child. I am made in thy divine image, and I will use that soul force. I will use that divine love, that divine discrimination and understanding, and that divine faith, that power of faith, that you are ever by my side, that you are the power that moves this body and this mind and this spirit. We can perhaps sum it up by always remembering God is the doer. We say this, but let us practice it. Remember that it is God in this body temple, and we have surrounded Him, we have bound that spirit with limitations. It is our duty as devotees of the Lord to take off those shackles by right behavior, by right understanding, by right determination. And then we free that divine spirit which is within us. And that God within, we see, thou and I are one. I am the victor over life. There is no problem, there is no trial, there is no test. I can be in this world as God intended me to be. I can play my role in His divine Leela, but I am truly, as a Paramahansa Yogananda could say, I am untouched by it. This world has no meaning for me. It does not bind me. When Gurudev, toward the very last days of his life, we were with him one day and he pointed to a picture of himself. And he said, you see that photograph? He said, just as I could take and tear that and feel no attachment to it, that is how I feel about this body. Soon I shall dump this body. But I see no difference, I see no change in the consciousness. When I look through these eyes, I see this world of suffering and misery, and I want to work through this body temple to help alleviate that suffering. But he said, on the inside, when I turn my gaze within, I see that this body does not exist. This mind does not exist. It is not but He. It is all His joy, His divine love, His bliss eternal, His eternal unbroken, unruffled consciousness. That, my dear ones, is what is truly meant by coping with life's tests. To be able to have that unruffled consciousness within, born of a divine realization that it is God within, while at the same time fulfilling our duties in this world. As Gurudev said, don't think that you can run away from your problems. They will follow you. Conquer your problems through right attitude, right action, and above all by that meditation. No matter what we say, it will always come back to that one point. If you will meditate, if you will feel God, then you will feel that strength. You will feel that peace, you will feel that guidance and understanding. which will help you to be that victor over all life's problems and tests. So, dear ones, it seems always our time is a little short, and the subjects could go on forever, but it doesn't do good to even say many words. A few words, and if you take those and if you practice it, that is what is important. You are learning so much during this week of intensified sadhana. Gather it all in your little notebooks, and then when you go home, really practice it, so that the time will come when we will meet again, as Gurudev would say to you all, that I see in your faces that you are becoming that divine victor, that divine warrior who is victorious over his sadhana. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru.